like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting of February 23, 2026 to order. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anna Murray. I am Councillor for Ward 3 and Chair of the Planning and Economic Development Committee. I would like to begin by reading a safety notice. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate council chambers to the nearest exit through the chamber doors and obey all instructions given, and if assistance is required, please see the clerk. Once you have evacuated the building, please gather in the front parking lot outside of Town Hall. Please ensure that your cell phone is on silent or turned off. And lastly, the Town of Lincoln Committee of the Whole meetings are posted on our YouTube channel. Closed captioning is available on all of our videos by selecting the closed captioning button on the bottom right of the video. Item number 2 on our agenda is roll call. Members of committee are in attendance, with Mayor Easton joining us in a little bit. We have staff in attendance in person and remotely, as well as a representative from Upper Canada Consultants. Item number 3, do we have any declarations of interest? Seeing none, we'll move on to number 4. Do members have any amendments to the order of the agenda? All right, then we move right on to item number 5, which is statutory public meetings. We do have a statutory public meeting this evening. The purpose of the public meeting is to provide background information, receive comments from the public, and consider questions regarding the zoning bylaw amendment by Upper Canada Consultants. We will consider the report associated with the item immediately following the statutory public meeting. Section 3412 of the Planning Act requires that before passing a zoning bylaw amendment, committee must ensure that sufficient information and material is available to understand generally the proposal being considered, and committee must hold at least one public meeting for the purpose of giving the public an opportunity to make representations regarding the proposed amendments. If you wish to be notified of any future meetings or of the adoption of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment with respect to this application, you must submit a written request to the town clerk or sign the attendance sheet at the door, and such request must include the name and address to which such notice must be sent. This will also entitle you to be advised of a possible Ontario Land Tribunal hearing. In accordance with new changes to the Planning Act, the adoption of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment may be appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal by the owner, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, a specified person or public body that has interest in the matter. Third-party appeals are no longer permitted. Personal information is collected under the authority of the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act and may be contained in an appendix to a staff report, published in the meeting agenda, delegation list, and/or the minutes of the public meeting, and made part of the public record. The Town of Lincoln collects this information in order to make informed decisions on the relevant issues and to notify interested parties of committee's decisions. Names and addresses contained in submitted correspondence and other information will be available to the public unless the individual expressly requests the town to remove their personal information. The disclosure of this information is governed by the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Our public meeting is for the zoning bylaw amendment by Upper Canada Consultants for 3865 Wismer Street, Jordan, report PD-05-26. We have one registered delegation for this item. Please note that delegations have a maximum of 5 minutes to speak, and our clerk will be signaling when that 5 minutes is up. Our delegation for this evening is Mr. William Highcoop, Planning Manager, Upper Canada Consultants. Mr. Highcoop, welcome, and please go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you all for having me tonight. As indicated, my name is William Highcoop, and I'm the Planning Manager at Upper Canada. I'm here on behalf of the owner of Len Penichetti to provide a brief presentation for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment to permit a parking lot on 3865 Wismer Street in Jordan. Here you can see an aerial context of the subject lands. They're located on the north side of Jordan Village and front onto 3 roads, including Main Street to the west, Wismer Street to the north, and 19th Street to the east. The subject lands are 0.1 hectare, or approximately just under a quarter of acre in size, and contain an existing single detached dwelling. The surrounding subject lands contain existing detached dwellings to the north and east, with commercial uses to the south and west. While the site is currently zoned as R1, the official plan designates the site as mixed use within the Jordan Secondary Plan area. The zoning bylaw will facilitate the creation of a private parking lot and associated landscaped areas. The purpose of the parking lot is to provide parking for the owner and their business at Cave Springs Winery, office, and associated tasting room. Now that the ownership of the former Inn on the 20 has transitioned, he is currently a tenant and does not control the existing parking lot and wants to ensure that the business continues to function and operate without disruption in the coming months and through the construction process of the new hotel. The proposed parking lot will include 25 parking spaces, including 2 accessible spaces. The parking lot will be accessed from the existing driveway location on Wismere. The plan includes extensive landscape surrounding the perimeter of the parking to create screening of the parking area to the roadway and to also enhance the visual aesthetic of the parking area from the roadway. The plan provides for boulevard trees, flower beds, coniferous plantings for screening, and maintains an existing coniferous tree in the southwest corner. The plan also provides for sidewalk connections and to both Main Street and 19th Street on either side. Since the reconstruction and the beautification of the existing streets over the last couple of years, it is understood early on that the visual appearance of the site was very important. Therefore, the owner has preemptively retained a landscaped architect and prepared a preliminary landscape plan. Here are some renderings that were prepared based on this plan, and they help illustrate how the parking area will look and be screened from view and result in that aesthetically appealing appearance from the street. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment would facilitate a zone change from the existing R1 zoning to a general commercial central business district zone in line with the official plan designation. The general commercial zone permits the standalone parking area. There is a small site-specific provision for a minor reduction in the aisle width to ensure there is sufficient space for landscape plantings. The general commercial zone is the same zone that is applied to the rest of the Jordan Village area and will allow for a range of uses in line with the official plan and the secondary plan. There was an open house on February 11th where 3 neighborhood residents attended. No objections were received to the proposal. Should we receive approval from council at a future meeting, we will be required to go through a site plan approval process and prepare detailed designs prior to construction commencing. So that concludes my brief presentation, and I'm certainly here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Highcoop. Are there any questions of the delegation? Councillor Timmers, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. I looked at this and I thought, it makes perfect sense. I think the landscape plan is beautiful and it fits in very nicely. I think my only question around it is the parking is for the business offices and for a tasting room. Is it going to be signed, or what if other people just park in there? Sometimes that happens and the other lot's full and they come over, and I'm just wondering what your plan is for that.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor. So there won't be controlled access or a gate or bars or anything or paid parking. So at this point in time, people can come and go it's proposed that people can come and go from the parking lot as they please. However, should someone park long-term and not attend their vehicle in a timely manner, as it is private property, there would be an opportunity to tow them. So there won't be controls. Really, the intent is to ensure that staff and visitors to the winery aren't disrupted through the construction process of the hotel. And as the owner of Cave Springs Winery no longer owns the Inn on the 20 in that parking lot, it's owned by a different owner, there's a desire there to ensure that that business isn't impacted.
No, I think it looks great. I think it's a good fit. You know, the house kind of looked out of place now at this point, and also there were no comments opposing, so that's a very good sign. The neighbors seem to be okay with it, so I'm as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Timmers. Councillor Miklik, please go ahead.
Thank you, through you to the delegate. Street speak, like when I talked to some neighbors in the area, nobody's come here formally, nobody's submitted any response. One of the concerns I heard was headlights shining in, when you have additional parking, you have headlights shining. And so, well, we can do our best with that. There's already Wismer, so the headlights are already there when you're driving. But when I look at the plantings and that sort of thing, should any concerns, should any complaints come in down the road, is there any willingness or is there an opportunity to change those plantings or increase those plantings or make them hopefully address these concerns that should they be brought forward?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor. Absolutely. At this point in time, we've taken very good care and we've had a number of conversations with the landscape architect to ensure that the buffer plantings, specifically for the parking stalls facing Wismer that have the opportunity to shine lights across the street to the north side, we've taken care to put a whole row of coniferous plantings, shrubs, at a low level there. So those will be, in canopy year-round, and they will be quite dense. So they'll be able to block a lot of those lights. But yeah, we're certainly willing to work with anyone if there's concerns.
Okay, terrific. It's nice to see that it's not just a fence. It's not fenced off, and it's plantings. Like the plantings I'm looking at, they look like annuals or look like plants that have to get cut down every year, similar to a lot of the plantings that are there. But should people be concerned, I'm just hopeful that there could be a change in what is planted to accommodate any of those concerns. Thank you.
If I may add to that, as I indicated, we're going to be going through a site plan process. So we'll be required to submit a detailed landscape plan with the specific species. So we can certainly work with staff to ensure that the species selected will provide that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Reimer, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Murray. Thanks for coming here tonight, William. Just one question, I guess it's more maybe of a hope or assuming when the utilities get disconnected because there's an existing house there, hopefully we can do that in such a way we're not disrupting all the, as you mentioned before, we've done a lot of work there with the roads and the sidewalks and everything, and hopefully we can disconnect those in such a way. I think the town would be able to work together with somewhere, so that we're not having to dig back or maybe stuff can get capped at property or something like that, so we don't have to do, because there's gas, hydro, there's quite a few there, so.
Through Madam Chair, we can certainly work with staff on that. We are aware that there's an existing water and sanitary service that will need to be capped, but we took specific care to place the proposed entry, ingress, and egress from the parking lot where the location of the existing curb cut is, so that we don't have to get into those works and try and open things up. So I'm not sure off the top of my head at this point of where we're at, where exactly that hydro and gas service are, but there's certainly a large cost component to having to go back into the roadway. So if we can avoid that, we'll be certainly undertaking that.
Awesome, great. Thanks, William. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Just one question from me, if I could. Further to Councillor Miklik's conversation around headlights, parking lots also often have light standards, so for night vision and things like that. I recognize there's a house there now that does have lights attached to it, but I'm assuming that, that would be a little bit more powerful, a little bit brighter, maybe on all night as opposed to a home which might be turning off. Have you guys addressed that at all in your thinking?
To yourself, so we haven't gotten to that lighting photometric design stage. That will happen through the site plan approval process. But through that process, we'll need to retain an electrical engineer. They'll come up with a luminaire spec that would go on the lighting poles. And as part of that approval process, we're not allowed to have any light trespass in accordance with the town's lighting standards. So we'll have to produce a photometric plan that takes photometric readings or lux or lumens of how much light is coming off of the luminaires, and we'll have to have a zero reading of those lumens at the property line. So through that lighting plan process, we can ensure that there's no light trespass over across the property line.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Seeing no further questions, thank you, Mr. Heikup. I think that means you can sit down. There being no further registered delegates, are there any persons present wishing to address committee regarding the zoning bylaw amendment by Upper Canada Consultants for 3865 Wismer Street, Jordan? All right, seeing none, we will move on to, that's it, I guess. Thank you. The statutory public meeting for the zoning bylaw amendment by Upper Canada Consultants for 3865 Wismer Street, Jordan is now adjourned. Thank you for coming. There being no further delegations or information for this item, I have a motion moved by Councillor Reimer that committee receive and file for information the following delegation regarding the zoning bylaw amendment by Upper Canada Consultants for 3865 Wismer Street, Jordan. William Heikup, Upper Canada Consultants. I will now ask our clerk to open that vote.
Thanks, Chair, and the vote is now open. I'll close that vote, and that carries. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move directly into report PD-05-26 regarding the zoning bylaw amendment by Upper Canada Consultants for 3865 Wismer Street, Jordan. The junior planner will provide comments. Ms. Tomeno, please go ahead. Over here, sorry.
Good evening. I can say, I guess, what I prepared. I will be repeating a lot of what William said. But yeah, so the property will be rezoned from residential 1 to general commercial central business district with the added zoning bylaw provision for the minimum parking aisle requirement from 6.7 to 6 meters. This 6-meter parking width is fairly common for commercial developments and has been approved in the past. Regarding the public meeting that was held, there were very few minor concerns. The headlights, I know snow storage was another one, and sight lines. But it seems that Upper Canada has come up with some solutions for that and are very open to solving them. So that's great, and that's cleared that up. As expressed in the provincial policy statement and official plan, staff are encouraged to support general redevelopment of the land that considers the existing and future needs of local businesses. The official plan also encourages the creation of compact and well-connected communities, which focus on land use compatibility. And more specifically, the Jordan Secondary Plan supports the advancement of functional and aesthetic-driven development, aiming to create a downtown with a robust commercial supply, where vegetation and pedestrian circulation still remain a priority. The purpose of this meeting was to gather comments from council and the public. So once all comments have been addressed, a subsequent recommendation report will be brought forward for consideration and decision. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions from committee? Councillor Miklick, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Through you to planning. Just with this parking lot, is there any concern about water capacity, sewer capacity, with the additional surface water that would be generated with a parking lot? And I'm looking at the village in general, you know, with this happening and the future. Like, what sort of capacities do we have for today and as well as the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think Matt will answer that one.
Excellent. Director Bruder, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we do a lot of vetting and making sure things are working from a stormwater management and draining perspective at site plan, of course. As you mentioned, that's going to be the next process. But I can tell you, going through what we went through with the overall design of Jordan Village, looking at things like infrastructure capacity, considering what new development could be, and considering things like stormwater runoff, there is adequate capacity in the system now to accommodate this. But like I said, regardless of that, we'll be taking a much closer look in detailed design, but I can confirm, we did look at kind of what redevelopment options could be at certain sites. Remember, this one has a mixed-use designation in the official plan as well, so we envision potentially some type of infill opportunity in the future based on that, and just based on that alone, there'll be adequate capacity, Councillor.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, so seeing no further questions, I have a motion moved by Councillor Mikulik. The committee receive and file as information Report PD-05-26 regarding zoning bylaw amendment by Upper Canada Consultants for 3865 Wismer Street, Jordan, and that committee directs staff to prepare a recommendation report once all comments have been received and any identified issues have been addressed. I will now ask our clerk to open that vote.
Thanks, Chair, and the vote's open. That carries.
Great, so then we'll move on to item number 6, which is our consent agenda. Inclusive of Age-Friendly and Active Community Advisory Committee minutes of November 6, 2025, and Museum Advisory Committee minutes of December 11, 2025. Would any member of committee like to remove an item from the consent agenda to discuss? All right, so that would be no. So there being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva that all items listed under the heading of consent agenda from Monday, February 23, 2026 be adopted as recommended. Age-Friendly and Active Community Advisory Committee minutes of November 6, 2025, and Museum Advisory Committee minutes of December 11, 2025. I will now ask our clerk to open that vote.
Thanks, Chair, and the vote's open. And that carries.
Thank you. Moving on to number 7, we will now begin the Planning and Economic Development Committee agenda. We have no delegations this evening, so we'll move on to item 7.2, reports. We will now consider item 7.2.1, notice of intention to designate the Grand Oak Tree at 4600 Victoria Avenue, Vineland. Report PD-06-26. The Manager of Planning and Development will provide comments. Ms. Kokiara, please go ahead.
Thank you and good evening. For those who may be unfamiliar, the Grand Oak Tree is prominently located at the southwest corner of Victoria Avenue and Green Lane Road on the property of the Grand Oak Market. This white oak has stood in this location for an estimated 300 to 450 years, making it one of the oldest living natural features in our community. This represents the first tree of its kind to be considered for designation in the town of Lincoln, and given its significance and the uniqueness of the request, staff have retained a qualified professional heritage consultant to undertake an independent evaluation. The consultant prepared a comprehensive heritage designation report, including a statement of cultural heritage value and also an arborist assessment. The designation report concludes that the Grand Oak Tree merits designation due to its striking physical presence and highly visible location, where it serves as a recognizable landmark within Vineland. Through its exceptional age, rarity, and enduring presence, the tree embodies both the natural and cultural heritage of the region. It is closely associated with the Culp family and the early Mennonite settlers, who contributed significantly to the agricultural and cultural development of the community. In addition, it is a remarkable remnant of the Carolinian forest ecosystem that once dominated the area. The arborist assessment provides detailed conservation and maintenance recommendations, including guidance on long-term care, a seed collection strategy, and interpretive signage. Staff have reviewed these recommendations with the property owner and are committed to working collaboratively to implement them moving forward. It's also important to note that while a new water main was installed in close proximity to the tree last year, a separate arborist report was completed at that time. Both arborist reports concluded that minimal damage occurred and that no adverse health impacts are anticipated, provided these mitigation measures are followed. Staff have undertaken remedial work and will continue to assist with fertilizing, watering, and mulching this year as part of the town's ongoing stewardship efforts. Last month, the consultants' reports were presented to the Heritage Advisory Committee, who then recommended that council proceed with designation. The property owner has also reviewed the reports and draft notice of intention to designate. As the Grand Oak Tree satisfies 5 of the 9 criteria for designation under the Ontario Heritage Act, staff recommend that council direct the issuance of the notice of intention to designate. Staff would also like to acknowledge and thank the property owner for his commitment to preserving this important and irreplaceable part of Lincoln's history. With respect to next steps, should council direct staff to proceed, the notice of intention to designate will be issued to the property owner, the Ontario Heritage Trust, and published in the local newspaper and on the town's website. A 30-day objection period will follow. If no objections are received, a designation bylaw will be brought forward to council for consideration, and upon passage, will be registered on title. And a designation ceremony will then be scheduled at a later date. Once formally designated, the property owner will also be eligible to apply for a town heritage grant to support ongoing conservation and maintenance efforts. Staff and the Heritage Advisory Committee would also welcome the opportunity to collaborate with the owner on potential public education and engagement initiatives to celebrate the Grand Oak Tree's significance within our community. Thank you, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much, Monica. Councillor Timmers, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I don't have a question, so Chair, if you would just allow me to make a couple of comments. You know, when I came on the Heritage Committee about 10 years ago, this tree was already on the radar and had been on the radar for many, many years. So I'm just absolutely thrilled to finally see this come to council for designation. And I want to thank Monica and all of the staff that helped to make this happen. And I know there were some times, Monica, when you were just tired of me asking about that tree, but I'm so glad we got there. And a huge shout out to staff. The new fencing that was put on the site around the tree looks fantastic. They did a wonderful job, and just really thrilled. So I hope everyone comes out to celebrate when we finally designate this very special tree in our town. So thank you. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me a few comments.
You're welcome. And Councillor Russell, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure who from staff is responsible. It's more about actual, based on the arborist assessment, there's some recommendations in the report about how the tree should be treated with, again, different fertilizing programs and whatnot. I just want to verify through the town that we are going to be doing those, and whether or not it's going to be us doing it, or we're going to be having an external consultant doing it on our behalf.
I can start off, and then if anybody has anything to add. Through you, Chair, the town has offered to do the first year maintenance. So the restoration work was done last year, but the town has agreed to fertilize, water, add some more mulch this year, so this spring. And then any work after this year will be, the property owner will be doing that work.
And through Madam Chair, just as a follow-up, is the town going to follow up to ensure that what is being recommended is going to be followed by the property owner, and to make sure that the care of the tree is of the utmost importance?
Yeah, we'll definitely be keeping an eye on it. But also, the property owner has already been maintaining the tree, and he'll continue to do what he's doing. And then if anything extra is required, then he'll be, if an arborist is required to assess the tree again, he can do that. And then there's also the grants that he can access to use for any additional work.
And Director Bruder has something he'd like to add to that as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not a whole lot to add, other than, as part of the process, when these recommendations came out, when we received them, we met with the property owner just regarding those responsibilities to make sure we were clear on what, everybody's role and tasks were. At that time, the property owner was fine with proceeding with a lot of those maintenance options. He expressed significant interest as well, obviously having gone through this, or be willing to go through this designation process in the first place, realizes the importance of ongoing maintenance of the tree. So a lot of that will remain his responsibility, and he's fine with doing so. But as Monica said, moving forward, it'll be a kind of a collaborative relationship between the town and him, just making sure that those things, the upkeep remains, and if there's any kind of support the town can offer, we can do so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, Councillor Renchema, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Murray. I think it's great that this is happening. It's wonderful to be celebrating some of our natural heritage and drawing attention to what trees and natural heritage can do for our community. And when I think people in the community see that we've highlighted this important tree, how long it's lived, that we want it to continue to live. It has a purpose in society. It has a history. It contributes to our ecosystem. So I think it's great that we're doing that, and great that there's going to be plaques, et cetera. So my question is, through the chair, are there any other, I remember seeing the registry list a few years ago. We reviewed the whole thing, but is there any other trees on that list in our community? No? Okay. Oh, really? Okay.
Sorry, Monica, can you please respond to that?
Yeah, sorry, through you, Chair. No, there are no other trees on the list. No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great.
Councillor Mikalik, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Through you to Monica. So, echo everyone's comments, it's pretty neat to designate a tree, but I'm going to put my life insurance hat on here, and it's a living thing. We've never designated a living thing, and God forbid, anything that's alive sometimes, perhaps one day might die. So if this tree does, should it happen to die, would the owner be eligible for a grant to pay for the removal of that tree, or does that grant funding only apply to the tree while it's alive?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. No, it is only when the tree is alive, so it's for any mitigation measures to keep the tree alive, but no, not once it's gone.
Okay, fair enough. I just wanted to ask that question because, what if there would be an expensive tree to take down, should it ever have to be taken down? And I just don't want to find out that the town is paying for it one day, because we designated it. So thank you very much for clarifying that and making sure that's noted.
All right, seeing no further questions in the queue, I have a motion moved by Councillor Brunet that committee receive and file as information report PD-06-26 regarding a notice of intention to designate the grand oak tree at 4600 Victoria Avenue in Vineland. That committee acknowledge the cultural and heritage value of the grand oak tree in accordance with Section 29(1) of the Ontario Heritage Act, and that committee direct staff to serve a notice of intention to designate, provided in Appendix A, for the grand oak tree located at 4600 Victoria Avenue in Vineland for its cultural heritage value or interest following the requirements of Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. I will now ask our clerk to open that vote.
Vote is open. And that carries. Thank you.
Thank you. So as there are no further reports for the Planning and Economic Development Committee agenda, I will ask the clerk to transition us to the General Business and Finance Committee agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Murray. We will now begin the General Business and Finance Committee agenda. Item 9.1, delegations, we have none. Item 9.2, reports. We will now consider item 8.2.1. Oh, I think these numbers might be wrong, but it is item 8.2.1, I believe. LS 0226, video surveillance policy. The Director of Legislative Enterprise and Information Services will provide comments. Steve Gross, Manager of IT and Enterprise Services, is also available to assist with questions should committee have any. Director Kirkelos, please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair Rajima. Members of Council, we're bringing this video surveillance policy forward as it provides a clear guidance for the lawful use, access, retention, and disclosure of video records, ensuring compliance with the Municipal Act and MFIPA. It balances public safety, privacy, strengthens oversight, and formalizes the town's practices across all municipal facilities in alignment with best practices recommended by the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario. And both Steve and myself are here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Councillor Murray, go ahead, you're next.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair, to our clerk. Julie, both important policies. I recognize for sure why we have them. I'm assuming the AI one is, I know we're not talking about that yet, but I assume they're going to need updating on a regular basis. I just wanted to know, is this policy in response to an issue that we've experienced, or is it a housekeeping item to make sure that we have the appropriate policies in place so that nothing does happen?
Thanks through the chair to Councillor Murray. Great question. So it is a housekeeping item. We've had video cameras throughout our facilities for a bit of time. There's been cases brought forward to the IPC, and it is best practice to have a policy in place, really just to put some information out there for the public as well as our staff, and education piece as well as to how it's governed and how it's protected as well. So it's just something that we need to put forward for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Anybody else jumping in line for a question? Okay, I don't see anybody else, so I do have a question. Through myself, the chair. Does having security cameras in place provide us with a break on insurance costs, and what does that look like? And is it the case that the more cameras, the better, or how does that work? Not sure who I should direct that to.
Thanks, Chair. It is a great question. We do have Charlotte online as she handles town insurance matters, but I'll let her emphasize if I don't capture it in my answer. I would say that it provides safeguards to our facilities in that if there's any kind of mischief or anything like that, we have that to really kind of go back to and take a look at. I would say that it provides safety for our residents as well as our staff. But in terms of an insurance break, I'll leave that for Charlotte to answer.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair. I don't have anything to add other than what the clerk has said. I can look into that, but I'm not aware of anything specific.
Okay, thank you. I'm curious if there is a kind of a related insurance break, or if it's something that they consider. And again, is it, the more cameras you have, the better, or is it just like if you have a fire hydrant near your house, you get a certain discount? How does that work? So thank you for answering that question for me and for agreeing to follow up on that. Okay, so that's all the questions I had, and I don't see anybody else in the queue. Councillor Pachariva, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Yep, yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to staff. Is this something that will be viewed on a daily or weekly basis, or are we just going to go back if there's some nefarious activity and use it as a backup tool?
Through the chair to the counselor. So this is on a as-needed basis. So if law enforcement requires it for any investigative purposes of that nature, but no, staff aren't actually, monitoring this minute by minute, no.
Okay, no, that's terrific, because I know in the past, we've had some incidents at the Fleming Center, so that's, I mean, you could go back.
It
and
is definitely
identify
there
that.
to,
Perfect.
yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't see anybody else in the queue, so there being no more questions, I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers that committee receive for information report LS 0226 regarding video surveillance policy, that committee approves the video surveillance policy as attached as Appendix A. I will now ask our clerk to open the vote.
Thanks, Chair, and the vote is now open. Madam Mayor, may I have your vote verbally, please? Thank you. Confirmed. And I will close that vote. And that carries. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now consider item 8.2.2, Report LS 0306, Artificial Intelligence AI Policy. The Director of Legislative Enterprise and Information Services will provide comments. Steve Gross, Manager of IT and Enterprise Services, is also available to assist with questions should the committee have any. Director Kirklos, please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. And one more report for tonight. We're pleased to bring forward the proposed Artificial Intelligence Policy, AI. In the absence of clear provincial guidelines or legislation, it's important that we as a municipality establish key principles to guide responsible AI use. The policy ensures AI is used responsibly, ethically, securely, while supporting service excellence. While we're still actively and proactively advocating for clear provincial rules that are needed, we will continue to review this policy as often as we need to. Really it touches on prohibiting confidential information without authorization, making sure that there's human oversight and accountability for any AI outputs, and alignment with information governance, records management, and so forth. So really ongoing review to adapt as the technology and regulations evolve. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this report? Councillor Russell, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, probably to the clerk. Again, we've already talked about this before the meeting a little bit already, but just a clarification. There is a point in Appendix A where it says ensure no personal, resident, or confidential information is entered into any AI tool, so on and so forth. And I'm just wondering if, again, it would make sense or allow for it to be changed to ensure no private, resident, or confidential information is entered into AI tool. And the reason I say that is, again, there are times, and especially in the future, we don't know what's going to happen, where, again, if you want to enter in your own likeness or your own name to create signage, advertisements for yourself, again, you would use an AI tool, and technically, the way it's written here, that may not be allowed. So that would be technically public information. So if you change that to private, then I think this gives you better discrepancy of what would be allowed.
Do you have a comment on that, Julie?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I do think that clarifies it, and I'm happy to make that change. If council is in favor of changing personal to private, and I'll just have Councillor Russell move that, and if we can just do a show of hands of all in favor for that change, that would be great for that amendment. And that carries. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Mikulik, you're next.
Thank you very much. This whole AI thing, I'm trying to get used to it myself. I don't really know how it all works, and I see a lot of AI, and I don't know what's real and what's not real. Is there something in this policy, or do we need to, in the future, look at something in the policy to let people know when AI is being used, so that they know if they're talking to an AI assistant or a actual human? Because I can't tell anymore.
Through the chair to the councillor, that's a great question. And I do believe that is captured in the policy that we should reference when that is being utilized. That is something new that you'll be seeing throughout any kind of social media or any kind of posts on any, you know, if people are referencing that in articles or research. So that is something that you will see more and more, and it's just a way for people to be more transparent. Again, in the absence of legislation, it's quite difficult. But I think that in order to build trust in the public, especially for governments, I would think that that is an added feature that we should be using on a regular basis.
Okay, thank you for that, Claire. I don't know if I saw that in the report itself, but it's just something that I think people would appreciate knowing if
I agree.
If they're dealing with a virtual assistant or a real, I see it in chat box and stuff like that. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mikulak. Councillor Timmers, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Rajima. Through you to Madam Clerk. So my question around that as well was, staff can use AI to generate information for reports. And sorry if you maybe answered this, but would there be something in the footnote that might alert us to that this information, this is where it was used from?
Through the chair to the councillor. So I think it's evolving. It's not common usage right now, but as I said, I do think that is where we are going, and I don't see any reason why we can't put that into some of the research. Like I said, and the human oversight as well for the AI outputs that are being provided. And Steve can elaborate on this as well, is that, it may help in consolidating some research, if you will, or, people may use it for various other purposes and in terms of conducting a report or information or anything like that to do some research. And it helps with efficiencies, obviously, right? So as great as AI is, there's still some information that can be returned that is not factual. And so it doesn't leave, it's not without human oversight that I think is imperative still. So although, yes, it's great and it happens in a matter of seconds on the information you get back, it really does still depend on the human to read that information and make sure it's as accurate as possible. And I think that as it evolves, you will see more and more the footnotes as you suggested, because without that, you're assuming that a human has come up with this all on their own. It may just be that they consolidated the information, but even more so, some of the research and where they're getting that information. And maybe that's something that I think everybody could be more transparent on for sure. It's a great question.
No, that's great. Thank you, Julie. And, I was happy to see this tonight. I know it is very early in, learning and using, and it's really just kind of coming into all aspects of our lives, right? So, no, that's good. It's interesting for sure, and I'm really happy to see this report here tonight, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Timmers. Councillor Murray, you're next.
Thank you very much, Chair. Through you to our clerk. Julie, again, excellent policy. I think it's something that really important that we put it in place. As has been noted, AI technology is still in its somewhat adolescence, let's say, not infancy, but adolescence, but it is growing exponentially. And a lot of policies we revisit once a year, or if legislation changes or something, because AI is growing so rapidly, do we have any kind of a set schedule for revisiting this on the regular moving forward? Or is it as you see things in the news that this is now happening with AI, that then we do it ad hoc? What's the plan for that?
Through the chair to the councillor, I would say that this is probably going to be one of the most visited policies that I will have on my plate. And I know that IT is keeping very, very close tabs on it as well. We may be coming back with, a structure in terms of what platforms we will be using and which ones we won't be using, but we're not there yet. And as council knows, those who were at AMO last year, this was one of the things that I was advocating for was, legislation in terms of, these types of things. And so it's really a shame that they haven't come out with any kind of legislation as of yet, because most municipalities are really operating from the same, shooting from the hip right now, because the way AI is being used is faster than anything that we could ever even imagine. And so just to have some sort of guidelines in place, I know that IT will be working with HR in terms of rolling out training even for staff and council on really the appropriate way to use AI and what you should and shouldn't do. Just now, because we're so early in it that we don't know what's being used and what's being transported from one user to another.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
you,
you.
Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. I'm going to ask, if there's nobody else in the queue, I'm going to ask a similar question to what I asked before. I know that, cybersecurity insurance is important. And what's happening around AI makes cybersecurity insurance and security even more important. So is there anything in our process of establishing our insurance rate that looks into whether we have a policy on AI and whether we're training our staff on AI, et cetera?
Thanks, Councillor. I have Charlotte on the line in terms of the insurance and what that looks like. I will also have Steve comment if there's any comments from his side of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As far as any insurance discounts or anything like that go with training, I'm not aware of any. However, we can certainly look into that and see if there is any possibilities for some discounts.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't know if Charlotte had her hand up or not. Okay, I appreciate that. I find that, I'm interested in the criteria that we're supposed to meet in order to, at least meet the requirements for insurance, but also potentially lower our insurance rates, because, our insurance rates are, for municipalities, are just insane. It's something we have to think about on a regular basis. Okay, so I don't see anybody else in the queue. Thank you. There being no further questions, I have a motion moved by Councillor Russell that committee receive and file for information report LS 0326 regarding artificial intelligence AI policy. That committee approves the artificial intelligence AI policy as attached as Appendix A. And I will now ask our clerk to open the vote.
Thanks, Chair. The vote's now open. Mayor, may I have your vote verbally? And you're in favor. Thank you. And that carries. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have confidential items. We will now consider agenda item number 10, a motion to consider confidential items. Before I read this motion and we move into closed session, I would like to explain what will happen for those watching this meeting online. First, there will be a closed session statement that the clerk will go through for staff that will be attending the closed session remotely. Once that is completed, we will move on with the motion to move into closed. Staff will be turning off the live webcast during the closed portion of the meeting. Once we have completed the closed portion of the meeting, we will resume with the live webcast and carry on with the public portion of the meeting, and will read the motions in public session. I will now ask the clerk to conduct the closed session statement for those attending the closed session remotely.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you to all members. You're reminded that any discussions in closed session are to remain confidential as per our procedural bylaw and code of conduct for the council for the town of Lincoln. Before I begin, I need each member that is attending electronically to confirm the following: that you understand that matters are to remain confidential, and confirm no one else is present with you, and confirm no one else can hear this closed session. and confirm that you are not using any electronic devices other than your tablet, computer, telephone, video conferencing, and confirm that you are not recording this portion of the meeting. We have one individual that is remote this evening attending, and if you acknowledge all of the above, please reply with, "I understand," and confirm to all of the statements. Shannon McKay, Director of Strategic Initiatives and Community Services.
I understand and confirm to all of the statements.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now that's done, we're going to move into closed session. Okay, I have a motion moved by Councillor Murray under Section 239 of the Municipal Act. Notice is hereby given that committee adjourned to closed session in order to address item 10.1 as follows. Pursuant to Section 239(2)B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, as it pertains to the Age-Friendly and Active Community Advisory Committee. I will now ask our clerk to open the vote.
Sorry, give me 1 second. And the vote is open, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor. And that carries, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Now that we've come out of open session, I have a motion moved by Councillor Brunet that committee resume in open session. I will now ask our clerk to open the vote.
Thank you, and we are resuming in open session, and I will open that vote and get that motion on the screen. And the vote is now open, Chair.
Thank you.
I will close that vote, and that carries. Thank you.
Great. I also have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva that committee receive and file the confidential update, and that staff move forward as directed in closed session as it relates to item 10.1 pursuant to section 239(2)B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, as it pertains to the age-friendly and active community advisory committee. I will now ask our clerk to open the vote.
Thanks, Chair, and that's open. And that carries. Thank you.
Thank you. So nearing the end of the agenda and the meeting tonight, do we have any committee remarks? Councillor Russell, go ahead.
Bless you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Just doing my job. Oh, okay. Got it.
Bless you too. Through you, Madam Chair, to Madam Mayor. Obviously, everybody is well aware of the letters we received from Regional Councillor Bob Gale about his intentions to receive information about amalgamation. And I'm just wondering if the Mayor can give us an update on her process for her take on the situation and her response to Regional Chair Gale.
Okay, great.
Councillor, and I'm very glad that we have a member of the public with us as well, because it'll be one more person who has accurate information. So, as you all know, and you each have a copy, we received the letters last Friday, and I was just as surprised as anybody else, because I had no idea that these letters were coming. We've been through this before, as you know, and back on January the 9th, 2024, I made a presentation to the Ontario Standing Committee on Heritage, Infrastructure and Cultural Policy. And Councillor Mikulik was there on that occasion, and also CAO Kirkopoulos. So the letters are very blunt in the sense that they don't leave a lot of room for what do we do next, or how do people have input, or really very much about the process at all. So, and also the mayors were informed, but the regional councillors weren't. So I found out they hadn't been notified. I called Councillor Foster, and he was invited tonight. However, I didn't want any delegations because I wanted you to be able to have the full benefit of whatever we're going to discuss here. And also, we meet on Thursday as a regional council, and so there'll be plenty of opportunity for us to speak there. So I understand that you want, you have a desire to have more information. We all do. And I've been talking a lot with my colleagues. And so let me just, I wrote a few notes. I'm not all that sharp today. I'm sorry I missed most of the meeting, but I did want us to deal with this tonight. So many of you, a number of you have asked me what my thoughts are on this matter. It's perfectly understandable. And as you read what's coming in on social media, people are very concerned. There's a lot of positive commentary. I checked today with the chair's chief of staff to find out how they were reading the room, and they believe that there's a lot of very good comments that are being made. Some people are very fearful, and so you get a different response, but it doesn't matter. The point is, it was shocking for people, and they needed an opportunity to talk about it. So I think now that there's been at least 3, and I believe 4 studies that have been done on regional, what I refer to as reform. And so now I think it's very important that we are able to clarify exactly what my perspective is, because I'm expected to write a letter to the regional chair by March the 3rd. However, we have there's a desire out there for us to, for the chair to know a little bit more about where people stand, and there's also a State of the Region luncheon on Thursday. So maybe we have time and maybe we don't. So the way I'm interpreting that is that this week, I was asked today for the short letter from the mayors saying that they were, whoever was interested in reform would sign the letter. We said, no, we can't do that. We need more time. So we'll do that over the next couple of days. So, so anyway, I have the copy of my letter from 2024. You were all given a copy, but if it happens that you don't know where it is, which is not uncommon for me, I happen to find it this time, though. The clerk will make sure that you get a copy of it, okay? And I would say that I don't think my position has changed, but I think the circumstances around the decisions that I'm going to be making are really related to, I think, a deterioration in the model that we have, which is over 50 years old now, and we certainly need something that's going to take us into the next 50 years. So, so I'll do that, and I'll make that as clear as I can. And I think that essentially what they want is they don't want to hear a lot of diplomacy. They want to know where we stand. So I get that. So as I said, I've spoken with some of the mayors, and I've done a lot of reading as you have, and I think you've pretty well published all of them. Yeah, so they're out there. They're out there on social media. People are reading them. And there's also the letters, the content of the letters, which if you go back and read them, basically talks about issues around duplication, which I certainly agree with. And again, I believe that we need to buckle down and determine whether or not there's a more effective model. I don't know whether you've seen the message from, I don't know whether this gentleman was a counselor. Have you seen a letter from a person from, a man from Cambridge? Anybody seen that? Okay, Madam Clerk, would you make a note, because he's talking, he has some different experience, and he's talking about a model where municipalities can remain independent. And apparently that's the model they have there. I don't know anything about their model, but Rob Axiak is the CAO there, so we shouldn't have any trouble finding out all about it. So that was another piece of information. So my support for any model, however, given the way this the 2 letters came out, is contingent upon it being properly structured in terms of everybody being absolutely clear about what it means. If we do this, what does this mean? If we go this way, what does that mean? And particularly financially, who's going to pay for this? Who pays for the, if consultants have to be hired, who pays for the consultants? If the, if there's work that needs to be done with consultants, who's going to pay for all of this? It would be very substantial. So these are things that we need to be very clear on. And again, as I said, a long-term vision, so 50 years. And again, the focus must remain on service delivery, because I think that's really a lot of what the public find difficult about the system. It's very weighted down with a lot of different processes. Fiscal sustainability has to come into the discussion, and overall strengthening of our communities. Now, I know that some of my colleagues have talked about local identity or heritage and how they are obstacles to thoughtful modernization. I don't agree with that. Now, I don't know, I know Councillor Brunet and Councillor Pachuriba must have been, not on council necessarily, but you were living in this community when we became Lincoln. And were you, Lynn? Anna? Anybody else? Yeah, a little bit. Okay. So we've had that experience. It's too bad, because the experience says a great deal about what went on at that time. People just went quite crazy about the whole thing. It was just, because they were just told this was the way it was going to be. Went on for a long time. I can't remember if we had a vote or not, but it went on for a long time. And in my opinion, I think it still goes on. So, but I do think that people feel very strongly about their heritage and about where they live. And I believe that the town invests as much as it can afford to try and bring balance to that. Not in every case, not with every project, but it's there. And I talked with some other mayors that are close to us about what their experience was, and it really isn't that different. But again, people are very interested in having conversations about this. So there's that to deal with, but I have to say, I don't see that as a barrier. So about now, the CAOs are starting to get involved for a couple of reasons. There needs to be a lot more discussion at the provincial level. There are people who are investigating this whole, the scenarios in every community. And so they need to be involved in that so they can keep us informed. And also, the CAOs are talking to each other quite a lot, and have been for a few weeks now, because there was just so much discussion about this. So that's fine, and that's all pretty normal stuff, and we know that our staff are going to be, they'll be on top of all of this, and if there's things that we need to do, they'll bring it to us. I don't expect that we're going to hear much more from the region for a while, but we could, and if we do, we'll bring it back here. So all I can really say to you now is that I think we should look forward to the possibility of being able to make changes that are going to really be of benefit to our communities. But I do think that we should be firm in our position about our community having access to information and being able to do that, not in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks. It doesn't make any sense. Now, it might be, I'm interpreting the March 3rd deadline as a deadline where the mayors need to provide an indication to the regional chair that we're moving forward. That's how I'm interpreting that, because it's not reasonable to expect that you could possibly do anything else. So that's my position, and we'll see. So I think the clerk laid out for you about 5 minutes each. We can do it on here, but I mean, we can just go around, and if you don't want to speak, you don't have to. But I would appreciate it if your comments could be documented, because some of the comments that you make tonight may not be relevant to the next 3 weeks, but they might be relevant to 2 months or 3 months or maybe further down the road. Some of your comments, you can talk about those tonight, but we need to have anything that's long-term as well. So is that satisfactory? We'll start that way. I'm sorry I don't have any more information. On Thursday, when things, when we have our session at night, it'll be public. There's no reason for it not to be. And so you can come or you can, watch it online. And I think it'll be quite interesting, actually. So, since you called me first, Councillor Russell, you could start first.
Go ahead, Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Madam Mayor, for, again, that response. Again, I think you laid it out pretty well. And from my standpoint, I think, again, the speed at which Regional Chair Gale is asking for this to be brought forward is unacceptable. Again, I don't know if you can, unless I'm assuming there's probably lots of other discussions and plans behind the scenes that we are not privy to, but again, I think that anything that does go forward should have much more consultation with not only the municipalities themselves, the staff, the public, and then, again, figure out the proper route to go. That is really guided on, again, specific pillars of what is trying to be accomplished. Like, it's one thing to say we want to cut political heads or number of representatives as one of the key indicators. Okay, that's easy to do. It's a different thing to say we want to create cost savings through amalgamation, which, again, I think you referenced some of the past case studies that have shown that that is, again, not necessarily doable over the long term. Again, maybe short term there are some things that could happen, but usually over the long term, any savings are usually costed out with, again, different projects and whatnot. So I hope that I'm curious to see the timing of when the provincial legislature comes back in to see if there's going to be an announcement from the province. I think they come back in March, end of March. That's going to coincide with this. Or is it going to be, again, going down the route that we had before where there's consultations with a hired consultant to try to formulate the best plan, and then also whatever that timeline is going to be to execute it? Because I think getting this ready, and again, the urgency that he seems to reflect in his letters seem to think that he needs this to be done immediately. I think that's a recipe for disaster if he's trying to get this completed for the October election. I think that if they do want to go down this route, it should be, again, well planned out, well discussed, and again, not as a group, but all the parties that are involved are working towards something years down the road. If it's the 2030 election, something along those lines. But again, I think everybody should be open to governance reform and looking at efficiencies, looking at new models, and have an open eye to your point about looking for the next 50 years. I think that's something that we definitely always should be looking at. I do think we probably need some provincial direction to make that happen, because just the discussions amongst the municipalities in the past, I don't think it's going to easily come to fruition if it's left to our own devices. So I think we do need that direction down. But I just hope that we have a longer laneway and, again, very strict guideposts of what is trying to be accomplished, so that whoever decides what that model is going to be, they can be held accountable afterwards if things go wrong, but also that, again, we are really trying to hit tangible goals with whatever is going to be tried to achieve. So that's my 2 cents.
I was told today that on 2 occasions, the regional councillors had said, after one of the reviews, the committee meetings. Don't worry about it because there wasn't any reports coming. And we apparently said, don't worry about it, we can do this ourselves. We're coming along with, this kind of a project and that kind of a project. And I think we had a lot of things on the agenda. But anyway, it didn't work. I was reminded that it didn't work. And then that happened again. So that happened again at the one I was referring to, the most recent one. And there were supposed to be wonderful things happening after that where municipalities were going to work together, and none of it happened. So your point is well taken. We do need guidance. And maybe that's why they're putting their foot on the pedal hard, because there has been quite a lot of time passed. Okay, Councillor Pachariva, you were the second person that called me.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, I mean, we've been talking about this forever. I think it would be important, and like Councillor Russell stated, the timeline, the expeditious timeline is the thing that's problematic. And also the fact, and, a bunch of the mayors have weighed in and it came out of the blue to them. So, based on openness and transparency, I think there needs to be a better process with everyone involved. Though, we all know we're creatures of the province, and at the stroke of a pen, the edict can come down and say, this is what's happening. So one of the things that I'd like to see going forward is there's been a couple of reports commissioned. I think one was done by Mr. Sealing and another fellow from KW that never saw the light of day. Or his got released and there was another one that was subsequent to that. So there's two reports, evidently, that the province commissioned, but they've never been released. So, yeah, and they haven't given you that. So, I mean, I had sent you this. What I'd like to see is that you come up with what are the top 5 costs as a region that we experience, and how will amalgamation reduce those costs? Right? Because I think, we talk about amalgamation, and whether it's Ottawa Carleton or KW or Hamilton, there is no immediate cost savings. Like they always preach that, but it ends up costing more. And I always laugh at the, Niagara is overgoverned. And, it's a bit of a red herring, right? The majority of us make $25,000 a year. So when you add that up, you're getting pretty good bang for your buck. And that's the fear of a lot of the public, is that a reduction in that will reduce their voice. The municipal politician is the most accessible, right? You see them at the arena, at the sports field, in the grocery store, at the gas station, and you know them on a first name basis, and the fear is losing that interaction, and that it will just be fewer voices around the table. The part about communities, again, you made mention of it, Your Worship. The town of Lincoln was established in 1970. I was only 9 years old, but I remember they had a vote on what was it going to be called. Was it going to be called Lincoln, or was it going to be called Beamsville? I, of course, wanted Beamsville because I'm from Beamsville, but it didn't, but you ask anyone, and whenever we have a discussion here, hardly anyone says they're from the town of Lincoln. They're from Beamsville, Vineland Station, Jordan Station, Camden, Tintern, Rockaway. And it's the same as in St. Catharines, Port Dalhousie, Meriton, Grantham. So that thing that you're going to lose your identity, that's always there because that's who you are. That will always be part and parcel of you. So I just think that the timeline needs to be pushed out. I can see it as a two-pronged approach, with maybe the regional governance reform as the first part, and then your amalgamation, potentially, of municipalities as second portion. So set yourself up going, the one way first, and then let the municipalities have some more discussion amongst themselves, because again, I see, some of the posts and, the town of Grimsby, with Grimsby and West Lincoln joined, and Mayor Junkin said they would rather come with the West End because of their, agricultural makeup and things like that. So that all still needs to be flushed out on what's the best fit. And, Fort Erie sees themselves as a standalone. Mayor Redekop said that. And then Mayor Steele is saying that, the northern or the southern communities, this is being generated by a few northerners. It's almost like the Civil War again, right? With the north versus the south. And what are the ulterior motives and what's to be gained? So I think if that's laid out in a succinct format that people can read and see and then, become part of, I think you'll get more buy-in. But the cloak and dagger that occurred, I think, has got a lot of people, a lot of people had their hair on the back of the neck stand up, and rightfully so. So thank you.
Thank you, and I believe that
Yep.
there'll be a lot of discussion on Thursday. These things will come up for sure because there's many people that feel a lot of concerns. So, Councillor Brunet, you were the next person that called me. Would you like to have something to say?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I agree with a lot of the comments that both Councillor Petriva and Councillor Russell have already made. For me, this is about the process. I don't believe that something of this nature can be rushed. I believe that communication is paramount, and it should be an open and transparent conversation with our residents, because for us, at the core, I believe what should be important is the town of Lincoln, our residents, and our taxpayers. And I feel that, quite often, what is portrayed in amalgamation at the beginning is it's about cost savings, but it never ever turns into a cost savings. It always comes into service levels. And service levels, if negatively affected, without public consultation, could end up to be catastrophic. So I think communication and a pause and doing it right is critical. I think this cannot be rushed, and I agree. If there is any intent that this be rushed through for the next election in October of this year, I think we need to communicate to the province that we think that is very, very bad. That's something that we feel should be prevented. I guess I would have, some questions, and I know there's not any answers, but as already has been reported, some of these mayors, Mayor Zalepa, and now Redekop, these municipalities have come out, and they've been quite vocal. I think their approach has been quite well thought out. I think the words they've chosen, but it is pretty powerful. But I'm wondering, what is our intention as we move forward? And I know, you're collecting information, you're going to a meeting. Is it our intention as the town of Lincoln that we will prepare a press release similar to the other 4 or 5 that have already come out with a press release? I guess that would be one of my questions. And then another question, and again, maybe this is a question for our CEO who's not here tonight, but I know the CEOs have been meeting and talking, but, what happens if nothing changes here and there's 7 that are willing to agree to some sort of reform and governance change, but the other 5 dig their heels in? Will the province bring a facilitator down to try to adjudicate? Just how will that play out is a question that I'm asking, and I'm sure you'll be asking on Thursday. But I guess I also, ponder the fact that the province has given us, and when I say us, I mean 444 municipalities in Ontario, ample time to prove that we were that we were taking what they were saying, that shared services is something they wanted municipalities to implement. And, is what's happening now a reaction to the province to say, we gave you the opportunity, you didn't react, and so we're putting you on the clock. This is, and I'm not saying we haven't. I think we've demonstrated down here in Niagara with a bunch of, MOUs, as well as fire shared services, library, et cetera, that we took it serious. But I'm just wondering if at the end of the day, they're just sitting here going, we gave you the opportunity, and this is what we're left with.
Question should be asked as well. Because I think on Thursday, my impression is that there's going to be a lot of questions about why things have to be done so fast, and why there can't be consultation. And so maybe that in itself is, if we agree that there should be consultation and we are willing to be part of it, maybe that in itself demonstrates that we're willing to move forward. We'll see, but I saw my list. Okay, so Anna.
Sorry, I just.
That's
Sorry,
right.
Madam Mayor. I believe Councillor Bernay still had a question or a comment or two.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I'm just going to let him in. I don't know what keep happening. You keep getting.
You've got a couple left.
You're not in. I don't know what's happening. See, I press you, and then I go. Okay. I think two of us are pushing buttons at once. Are you on? Okay.
So, Madam Mayor, in your opening comments, you made I think what was an astute comment that, we're not going to solve all the problems today. There's a lot to be unraveled here, and it will take time. But I just think, and Councillor Timmers knows this, we've been just having some aside conversations at some of the committees that we sit on. So there are a lot of things that possibly moving forward, as you alluded to, that we should keep in the back of our mind. So in other words, fast forward, beyond the election, an amalgamation occurs, and all of a sudden there's I'm just talking out loud, there's a 4-city model. There's a ton of stuff that at that point is going to have to be dealt with. And, one of the things is, hydroelectric commissions. And, Niagara Falls joins with Niagara Falls. With Niagara Lake, there's a Niagara Lake Hydro. We join and we have shareholders with NPI, and Grimsby Hydro has a hydro commission. So there's many, many things that will have to be dealt with, and I just think they need to be, kept there, so when the time is appropriate, that they'll be asked, those questions can be addressed, and we can get appropriate answers. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Important element. Councillor Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair. Through you to Mayor Easton. I appreciated the opportunity that we had to talk about this. Again, as a first-time councillor, I know we've talked about it a lot in this term with the provincial government in terms of possibilities of amalgamation, but I'm very surprised that it has bubbled up to the surface again. From my perspective, what I'm seeing, the challenges that Chair Gale highlighted, some of them are 100% valid challenges that we need to address. I'm not sure that a 1-city model is going to address them. I'm not sure that a 4-city model is going to address them. And I think that as a municipality, the town of Lincoln has worked really hard to do what we could with our limited scope of influence to address some of those things. We've actively engaged in shared services successfully, also not successfully, but I mean, like, we've really put ourselves out there to cooperate with the municipalities around us. We took the time to controversially review our ward boundaries, review our council makeup, and determine what was the best way we could go forward, and made some tough decisions around that. I think that we've really shown ourselves to be super cognizant of taxpayer dollars, looking at efficiencies, looking at finding ways to be the best resource for our citizens as we can. And I think that that's what's in some ways missing from the bigger regional picture. And I think that unfortunately, again, we have such limited scope that all the good work we've been doing doesn't necessarily translate into a bigger improvement across Niagara, but I think that we can absolutely be part of that solution because we've shown that we can do it. If we can do it, anybody can do it, right? Like, it's a possibility. And I think that some of those things that has been mentioned, cost savings are not super likely. History has shown us that cost savings aren't really there, but there are some benefits to it. You know, when we're advocating to the higher levels of government, a single voice with a single strategic direction is a better speak. It's a better ask. It's more likely to get results. The idea of minimizing some of the administrative, being pulled in 12 different directions, some of the conversations around that, I think we can work to build it. But I do think I really echo a lot of the other comments is that doing that in a lightning quick, we're going to fix this tomorrow or in 3 weeks or in 4 months is not the way to build success. If we need reform, if we need to see changes, we need to invest the time to do it carefully and thoughtfully and really strategically. So at the end of it, we have a better solution for the long term. We have to future-proof it. And I think we've done that really well here as our municipality. And I think it behooves us, so to speak, to help create that same spirit of collaboration at the regional level, regardless of what the solution is to those challenges. But yeah, the timing is a little scary to me, similar to what Councillor Brunet was saying. But I'm confident that Town of Lincoln, the leadership here, will handle it with as much professionalism and strategic thinking and hopefully a little bit of grace as we can.
So Councillor Timmers is next, Chair? Yep.
So I didn't come prepared to speak to this tonight. I need to get all of the information. So I basically have been just reading everything that's been coming out, looking at all the comments. You know, this is not something new. It has been discussed for many, many years. These letters seem very urgent and abrupt. And I feel like it's definitely set everybody, you know, in motion. And to think that we're going to just put up our hands and say, no, absolutely not, we're not doing any of it, I don't see that happening whatsoever. You know, these letters, it's very clear what Chair Gale has in mind and the things that he's looking for, that he's laid out. It's not a yes or a no. I think it's going to be, we do need some more time to digest all of this, and I'm waiting for the meeting on Thursday so I can hear the discussion around the regional table as well. To speak to this, there's so many unknowns at this point. It's hard to actually come up with a clear plan at this point for any of us. And you know, I was thinking about the assets, like Councillor Brunet brought up. All the towns have their own assets. What do we do with those? And I was thinking about when transit amalgamated and the cities kept their own assets. Is that what would happen? Would we all keep our own assets? Or how does that work? I don't know. You just go down a rabbit hole. It's just endless questions of how will this work? What will it mean? And we know that there won't be any savings. My fear is there would actually be more cost. And I also fear the louder areas, bigger areas, having a bigger voice at the table. The smaller players are going to be forgotten, especially our rural areas. I feel like we are going to really struggle to be heard in our community, even as a 4 city. So anyway, it's very difficult to formulate a decision or opinion because there's just so much that we don't know yet. So I'm kind of a wait and see. I'm waiting to learn and hear more. So that's all I have to say tonight. So if people are looking for a yes or a no, I think it's kind of pointless right now. So anyway, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Councillor Timmers. And I don't think that, there's nothing wrong with taking that position because if it's yes, well, I don't think we're going to be having that kind of a choice, but it's how's it all going to play out? So that's where we need to stand firm, and because that's where it will make a difference for us.
Thank you. I didn't write anything, and I didn't actually prepare for this, so there's just one other point that I wanted to state, and someone else has already said it. I see this being staged in. I think, the chair has put everything in the letter, and we're all like, wow, look at all these things. And I think it's kind of like, you throw it all out there, and then it's going to be, well, we're not going to do all of it, but we're going to do this piece. And we might be so happy that it's just this piece that we might be more agreeable. Like that's how I interpreted the letter, and I see it being staged in. There may be something before the next election with cutting some, maybe regional councillors. I see that coming. I've heard people talk about that. So I see that being a possibility. And we might all kind of go, whew, okay, well, we're doing that, but we're still gonna, we're gonna work around and keep going until the next phase. I see it being phased in. I hope that's what happens, but it may not. It may just come on us and that's it. As JD said, we're creatures of the province. If they decide to do it, they're going to do it. So, but we need to position ourselves. Anyway, thank you.
Councillor Ranjima, you're the chair, so why don't you take the next moment? Next
Okay.
5 minutes.
Thank you. So interesting comments around the table. The idea that it's about cost savings, I think that, those of us that have been around for a while and heard this discussion come up a number of times over the last 15, 20 years, whenever it comes up, it's not new. And whenever it comes up, any expert that we've heard speaking, any information that we receive about previous municipalities that have amalgamated, it's pretty clear that it's probably not a big cost savings, if any. So, for example, Michael Fenn and David, I forget his last name, when they brought their report forward, what is it? Sealy. Yeah, sealing, like the ceiling. It was pretty clear that it's not about cost savings. And in Chair Gale's letter to the province, he said it's about competing local priorities. So the inability to get stuff done, essentially, and the number of politicians and number of municipalities is seen, I believe, not necessarily as a cost burden, but it can be a burden to getting stuff done when you're looking on a grand regional scale, things like transit. Everybody wants to know they jump into sort of a protectionist mode. How much do we have to pay? Where are our assets going to go? But more, why do we have to pay for something that needs to happen on a regional basis? And then there's a lot of sort of, interdiscussion, and then things kind of get dropped. And protection of our assets and protecting our expenditures when it comes to region-wide investments. So getting stuff done, I think, is really kind of at the core of all this. Housing, as we know, sometimes in individual municipalities, the answer is always no, not in my backyard. So when you have less municipalities, less wards, less municipalities, you're still answering to the electorate, but it might be a little easier from the province's perspective for things like that to get done. So the other thing I wanted to say is I think it's very difficult to provide feedback when there isn't a detailed framework that they're providing. They've just said it would either be one big municipality or 4 municipalities, but how do we provide feedback on that? So it's tempting to jump into, well, this is our feedback on one municipality, this is our feedback on what we think it would look like for 4 municipalities, but I think we should kind of avoid that and really, well, Madam Mayor, it's you and the rest of the mayors, but I think really highlight what you think the best model is. That's my feedback for today. Thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. Yeah. Yes.
It's important because I think, a year from now, when we're talking about some element of this, we'll be happy that we had a few conversations and did some thinking and wrote a few things down, read a few things. So I see this as being quite an ongoing process now. It's not going to go away. They seem to be very determined. Councillor Mikulik.
Thank you very much. I echo Councillor Renchim. I do want to thank you for allowing us all the opportunity to speak to this. You could have taken a position and just published a statement without our feedback, so to do what you're doing right now is appreciated, at least by myself and I'm sure everyone else. The comments that I have is taking notes, because we figuring this out on the fly, is I feel like we have to remember why we're here. Like, how did Chair Gale come to all of this? And it's unsustainable tax increases. But I'm not sure if the region or anyone's really looked at how did we really get there? How did this all happen? Just to say that too many politicians, too much duplication. What is that all costing, really? Do we even know? We don't know. I don't think we know. We're just saying things without any real proof. As far as democracy, yeah, I was elected democratically. I think that it's important that we do this democratically. I think we can, if we really care about what the people think, what they want is what I'm hearing, that the public wants this. Well, we can wait another 7 months and put it on a referendum. Why don't we put it on the election referendum and have the people say at that time what they'd like to see for the next 30 years or so on, especially when we're talking about destructuring and restructuring 12 organizations to either form 1, to form 4. We don't even know. We're just being suggested various ideas. So I think if we really care about what the people think, then let them vote on it. Give them the choice. If there's ever a time to have a referendum question, I think that would be a great time. We look at timing. We've heard about timing, and we talk about timing, and yeah, timing. It took us almost 7 months or a year to figure out where to draw new boundary lines and how many councillors and this sort of thing. It took us almost a year to do that with a consultant. I don't see how possibly we're going to be able to take apart and reconstruct 1 or 4 municipalities, 3, 6, we don't even know at this point, before the next election. So that is unrealistic in my mind, being a regular person. And I think if you ask any regular person, they would say the same thing. But again, I'm just one of approximately 500,000. And as far as the whole thing, yes, in favor of this or no in favor of that, I am in favor of taking a look at how we operate as a region, as municipalities, because I'm here representing the taxpayer that works hard for their money. And I want to make sure that that money is spent appropriately and responsibly and efficiently as possible. I just want to make sure that we do this with surgical precision and not with an axe, a blunt force trauma, an axe that takes 7 months instead of maybe taking a couple years, which it should really take to do a fulsome restructuring. I believe at least 2 years from what I can gather. So to say that we're going to get this done in 7 months, I respect that ambitious target. I just respectfully feel that that might be a little overambitious. And also, like, for everyone involved, whether it's staff, whether it's politicians, myself, if I find myself out of a job, that's okay. I'm going to be all right. But I don't know about all the people that are working, the uncertainty that comes with this sort of action. If we're talking about saving jobs, or if we're talking about efficiencies or duplication, then yeah, we have to talk about, like, more serious about, like, how does this affect employees of any municipality, not just councilors. So those are my comments, just shifting on the fly in an afternoon's thought. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCulloch.
Thank you very much. Are you ready, Councillor Reimer?
Always ready.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. And I don't want to repeat, I don't think I'll repeat anything I said here. I'll allude to that, but I want to thank you, as has been mentioned, Mayor, for your allowing us to speak to this tonight. I haven't seen them directly, but I've read them, some of the responses from other municipalities, and I'm not so sure they're measured. And I didn't agree with some of their responses, and I much prefer a steady, common, measured response that you've demonstrated for us as a council, and I'm happy for that. Moving forward with less governance will always be my preferred option. So if there's a way that we can less red tape, less bureaucracy, less time spent with everything in general, that will always be my option. It's unfortunate that the information and I guess the lens that the public in general, again, is looking through is a cost savings, either through elimination of councillors or just in general. And I think I've mentioned that before already with some of our shared services that we've had in the past, and some of our discussions about that. On paper, this is a money saver. If you were to talk to people in the private sector, aligning two companies, which I'm doing right now, actually in the middle of, there is efficiencies and there's cost savings. I realize it's a different, I'll use the word lens again, that you look through the business that you're doing, and those two will always be different. But I do believe I would move forward with the less governance idea, with the hope and the desire and the dream that there would be cost efficiency involved in that. The timelines that have been thrown out there or alluded to, I'm not sure I've seen any definitive timelines. I would be of the opinion, though, that we will never solve all the problems, and we will never all be on the same page. And I would certainly lean more towards ripping the Band-Aid off than dragging this out. If we're going to do this, if we agree we need less governance, let's get to it. 2 years this could be 2 terms by the time we all get on the same page. And I realize there's 12 municipalities here, but I think it goes bigger. Councillor Brunet alluded to, this being looked at through 444 municipalities, and if with the potential of other centers coming together too, under the lens of efficiencies, right? And that's painful. That's painful. That many. That's just painful. And I want to make sure I don't want to take out the public input or their ability to voice their opinions or their views. But I also think that we've been put here for a reason, and that's a reason to make decisions like this. And so I think we can transfer our constituents' wishes and desires, and there's many of them, just as many as has been illustrated already here tonight. So I only say that comment to what's been alluded here as far as having, public meetings and town halls on this specific thing. We'll never be on the same page. And I think the top-down, there is a government that, whether we agree with them or not, that have a majority. And I do believe there's some people there who have been through amalgamations as well, too. If that's the way forward, I think we have to rise that occasion and that timeline and make decisions. And we need to be, as was said here before, accountable. We're the ones who are accountable, I believe, in something like this. So we're not shifting this up further up. I think this is something we need to be accountable for. I realize that's a big statement, but in some way, we're going to take part in this, and we need to be accountable. I don't like the idea of throwing it on having it come from somewhere above and just saying, well, it isn't our fault, and kind of leaving it alone. We've been elected. We are the closest, as was mentioned, I believe, Councillor Patriva, to the constituents here in the town of Lincoln, and that's where our responsibility lies. So I do believe, if I could make one more point, I think that time was 5 minutes was up. I believe less governance will make our residents better voters, because I think there's going to be less of us to be here, and they're going to take, if I could say one thing to, or encouragement to our residents, is that they need to make more informed decisions when they put their X in a box. And with less people there, they'll make better decisions. Thank you, Mayor.
I think we've covered everything, and I could go back because you undoubtedly have other questions, but I'm not going to do that. We've spent some time. Start taking notes, get a little book, and start writing in, because this is going to be there's going to be lots of things to talk about, and we will talk about them. So a couple of things I wrote down is that I'll be looking for on Thursday, just to see if anybody else brings it up, is whether or not there'll be money from the province to pay for some of these studies and that sort of thing that need to be done. Whether or not, second would be whether or not some time would be spent on a strategic purpose, because the region has become it's like a Leviathan now. And in order for people to become comfortable with what's happening, somehow we have to take some of that out, so that it's more transparent, and that when projects are done, that they make sense. Now, we're very lucky because our staff have the kind of a relationship with the staff at the region, both in planning and in public works, that it's very tight, and we know that work is going to get done, and they talk about it, and they make whatever arrangements need to be made. I don't know whether that's the case for everybody, and if it isn't, then that's a bit of a problem. But we need to continue doing what we're doing right now, and continue to use those opportunities. And even though the fire pilot, turned out to be a little painful at the end, we shouldn't discourage ourselves from having more pilots. If there are people that are sincerely interested in doing something, then let's get on with it and add some accurate data to what's happening. Let's try and debunk things that don't make any sense, because these studies that have been done, I mean, they're decades old now. I don't know when the one in Grimsby was done. The only person I know that really had much experience with it is Mayor Jordan. That was a long time ago. I can't even remember the name of it. But anyway, nothing happened with it. So Mr. Bruder, you've been sitting here representing the CAO. Mr. Deanne, I'm going to give each of you a couple of minutes if you want to say something, and then and then, Madam Chair, you can adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Maybe just a couple of small comments just to wrap things up. I think a lot of good points were made tonight. I think, in terms of seeing how the process plays out a little bit more. I know there's some big things coming up, big meeting on Thursday. I think, it'll be important to continue the information sharing as we move forward. I think that's a key component of this, and that's a big takeaway from tonight, that everybody needs to stay informed, which I know the mayor will continue to do. So I think, if I could leave everybody with the assurance that that's going to happen, I think that's really where my comments would end, Your Worship. Thank you.
The position, I'll certainly take the position, as I did before, that reform is required. However, I take all of your comments about the speed with which this is being pushed and, that kind of thing. It'll be a different kind of a message. And I think it needs to be, and I believe that message will be coming from all municipalities. It's too much too quickly. So, Mr. Deanne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I was just going to echo what our acting CEO has indicated, that we stand ready and willing to communicate all information to our residents and keep them informed throughout this process. So I'd just like to reiterate that as well. Thank you.
Particularly, with tourism, that's a pretty big commitment. And it's not small. There's a scale to it that is quite important. We don't want to lose any ground on that. And I think there's others as well, but that one in particular is important. So, okay. If there isn't anything else that is burning, thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor, again for allowing us all to comment and providing us with your feedback. And we're looking forward to Thursday and seeing the conversation that happens around the table at the region. So there being no further business, I call this meeting adjourned at 8:10 p.m.